Hi, I have your number 4 file in front of me, and the very first thing that I want to do is to show you that I'm going to turn off the clicky copy, and then I'm going to add a layer right here above this color right here, okay, this whole color, because I want to add, and I want to show you, I just want to add a real simple lighter value in the middle, so when I go to paint the lines in, it looks better, and this will only take a second. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer right above this, and I'll just call it lighter bottle. Now I'm going to get my paintbrush. You can see how big my paintbrush is, right? It's rather large. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to get this lighter pink right there. See it? So I'm going to hold Alt and sample it. Okay, cool. Now, what I'm going to do is back off a little bit, make a selection of your whole bottle. So look over here in the path. I'm going to hold Control and make a selection of it and turn off the clicky copy. Now, looking at that little piece of reference that's down here, I'm just going to lighten up the center. So I'm just painting. My flow is at 5, and you can see I'm just adding a little bit of light value right to the center. Okay, so let me turn this on and show you. I could probably go quite a bit farther. So let's just go like this, and that's enough now to just make that work. Okay, so that's all I wanted to do right there. Now I'm going to deselect and save your file. Now, we need to go into Illustrator, but we need Illustrator's file to be the exact same size of this file. So watch how I do this, and you're going to do this one step at a time. Okay, so we're going to use the clicky copy to make a file that is a Photoshop JPEG that I'm going to save to the desktop. So watch what I do. Right hand click and duplicate that layer. Okay. We're going to make it go to a new file, to a new one. Click OK. Now, I want to take this new one that I have right here that's in front of you and save it. So I'm going to go Control S to save it. Now let's save it as a JPEG. Let's just call this Illustrator Lines. And save it to my desktop. Okay, so I'm going to click my desktop right there. You can see I just clicked it right there and save it. Okay, now let's just minimize Photoshop for a minute. So I'll just click it and I'm going to minimize it. All right. And I'm going to go over to this new JPEG right there and right hand click, which is what I want you to do, and open with, see that? Open with Illustrator. Now it's exactly the same size. Okay, so we're going to now dim this layer so I can work with it. Okay, so I'm going to go into this layer right here. All right, and I'll make the icons bigger so you can see them. So let's just call this reference. Reference. And I'm going to go into the reference, and I'm going to click on the image right there. And I'm going to dim it a little bit so it doesn't get in the way. See up here, and if you don't have this right up here, this upper bar here, it's under Window Control Bar. Okay, so Window Control, if you don't have that. So I'm going to go now to the opacity and just turn it down to about 40 or 50, just so it's kind of lighter. All right, just so I can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to lock it. So I've locked that layer. Just like in Photoshop, I'm going to click the new layer button, and I'm going to call it Lines. Now watch how fast this is. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to hit the P key for pen. I'm going to take and see this little switch thing here? This is the fill, this is the stroke. So I don't want to fill, I only want a stroke. So I'm going to just click that. And if it was white, now double click, just double click the stroke part. So I'm double clicking that. Now I'm going to take the circle just like in Photoshop and have it go to the bottom right. Now I click OK. Now see how it changed from white to black. Now let's make it about 0.75 thick. Okay, 0.75. Good. Now all I'm going to do is make a line that goes from here where I'm pointing right there to about up here. And it's going to follow. I'm going to use only 3 points. 3 points. One, this is the second one. See that? Now I'm pulling the handlebar, right? Pulling the handlebar. And I'm going to go up here about that high right there and pull. And then I want to check the clarity of that line. So let's get up there, and you can see I didn't do very well right here. So this is what I need to do. I need to click to the direct select tool, okay, not the regular one, but the direct select, and grab this handlebar and pull it out a little bit and just get that to be really clean geometry. Now, I'm just going to follow, I just want to make this one longer right here, just a little bit longer. So you can see I'm being real picky, but I'll take this one and pull it a little bit longer. Now, isn't that a pretty good definition of the right-hand side? Okay, perfect. Let me put that away, and let me move this over. Okay, so I'm going to go to the regular selection tool now. So that's what I want you to do. Go to the regular selection tool. Click away. Just click away from it. Now, hold Control-Alt right now. Hold Control-Alt and click and don't let go on the line. Hold Control-Alt and click and don't let go on the line. Now add the Shift key to your finger and slide to the left. See how I made a copy of it? I'll do it again. So hold Control-Alt and click on the line. Don't let go. Hold Shift and drag to the left. Now we're going to use this palette to reflect this for the left side. So what does that mean? Well, inside the Rotate tool, it's the fourth one down. We'll find the Rotate tool and right-hand click. Go to Reflect. Now, double-click in this tool palette, double-click Reflect. Now, make sure you're clicked on vertical and make sure it says 90 degrees. Now you can see what it did. It just flipped it on the vertical, right? And click OK. Now use the regular selection tool. If you have to move in, click like that point right there and hold the Shift key and slide it over. Now don't forget about the Shift key because that'll keep this really symmetrical. Now look what I did. I made a line on the right, correct, with only 3 points. I held Control-Alt, clicked on the line, then held Shift and dragged a copy to about right there. Then I used the Reflect tool, 90 degrees on the vertical to make this one. Now, stay in the regular selection tool. Just stay in there. You have 2 lines, correct? 2 lines. Now I counted how many lines are across here. There's roughly 48 lines between this one and this one. 48. Okay. So I'm going to click on one of them. That's what I want you to do. Hold the Shift key and click on the other one. And don't forget that this whole time the reference layer has been locked. That's important. Okay, so I'm going to save this file now before I lose it. It's currently a JPEG. I don't want it a JPEG. I want it an Illustrator file. So I Control-S to save. I'll call it Lines AI, remember, Adobe Illustrator file, and I'll save it. I'll just click OK. All right, so we've determined that there's 48 lines across this way, not including this one and this one. So I'm going to go to the Blend tool. And I want you to go to the Blend tool and double click it so this window comes up. All right. Now change it from smooth color to specified steps. Smooth color to specified steps, and make sure that the orientation is on the left icon. Okay. And put in 48. That's all I want you to do, is to put in 48. Now let's click OK. Now, how do you make this tool work? Well, you're given a little icon right there. Now what you have to do is find 2 similar points, meaning here's the top point on the left. Now, if you can see it, look in the movie real close. See how the center of that little icon is white? Look at how it changes to black when I hold it over that point. So now I'm going to do what's called lock and load. Okay, so I'm sorry, load and lock. So I go load it with this one. Look over here. I'm going to click it with the top one on this side, and look what happens. Now let me Control Z back and show you that again. So once you go to the blend tool, and once you state specified steps at 48, just click OK. Click two similar points, one on one side and then the other side. Now you have your lines. Now I'm going to save the file again. So Control S to save the file. Now could you imagine how long that would have taken you in Photoshop? Okay, so now we have single strokes as our path. Well, that's not going to work. We actually have to turn these into something that can be used in Photoshop as a selection. Now, when you first use a tool like the blend tool, it only records, and I want you to see this, there's only going to be two lines here. See them? Right there and right there. Because Illustrator says, well, maybe you don't want all those lines to be individual lines. I'm going to say, yes, I do. But before I ruin this one, I'm going to grab this layer and duplicate it down here by next to the trash can. Now I will lock and hide the original in case I mess up, which is what I want you to do. Now I click the circle over here for this one. See the top one? See the one I'm turning off and on? I click the circle and I go to Object Expand. Now that means to expand all of just the two lines into the ones that have 48 lines plus 2 is 50. So look what I get. I get a window and says expand the object, fill, and stroke. I only really need the stroke. And I'm going to click OK. Now, it actually recognized. See how now each one of these lines is a real thing? Now I want to zoom in so you can see something else. When I opened this, do you see how it turned into a group? Well, that's wonderful. That's perfect. It's what I wanted. So now I'm going to zoom in so you can see that there's a selection line in the middle. Right now, this is just a stroke at 0.75. I need it to be a fill. So what did Illustrator let you do? So I'm going like this so you can see. If I go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, it'll turn them into fills. And that's it. That's the perfect thing. Now, I don't care what the fill color is. It doesn't matter because it's going to turn into nothing when it gets into Photoshop. So just leave it as black. Okay, now I'm going to back off so you can see the whole thing. Now I'm going to save the file again. Now before we bring this into Photoshop, we need to make sure that Illustrator is ready for that. Because, and I'll just say it, if I copy this and paste it into Photoshop right now, Illustrator is only going to paste it into Photoshop as pixels. So I need to have the option in Photoshop, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So how do I do that? Well, I go to the Preferences in Illustrator, and I go all the way down to File Handling and Clipboard. That's what I want you to do. Make sure, see this check mark here? Make sure AICB is on. That stands for Adobe Illustrator Clipboard. What's a clipboard? It's where you copy and paste things to, so you can use them in other applications. Now, make sure it's on Preserve Paths, not Preserve Appearance. Okay, so AICB on, Preserve Paths, click OK. Now, save your file one last time, Control S to save, and Control C to copy. Now just leave this open. It's fine, just leave it open. Now let's go into Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, what happened to my image? It's down here. Okay, so here's Photoshop. This isn't the one that I want to work in. This is the one that I used to make that JPEG copy, so I'm going to close it. There is your file. I'm not even going to save this. Doesn't even matter. Now, do you see how I'm in your file in Photoshop? So now I'm going to click the F button so I can go to full screen, and I'll turn off the clicky copy. Now this is important. you have a work path down here that you never saved. I'm going to double click it and I'll just say lower curve. Now, the next step is I want to paste this into Photoshop as paths. It's very important that you hear that. Paths. And I do see that we're going to fix it in a minute. You have a left one here. See how all of your paths are dark on the outside with light on the inside, and this one's reversed? So we better fix that one first. I'll just fix it first. Okay, so I'm going to click to it and I'm going to find that path. It's right there. It's right there. So I'm going to hit the P key in Photoshop. I'm in Photoshop. Hold Control and marquee so the points are selected. Here, I'll zoom in. You go to the pen tool. All right, go to the pen tool. Hold your finger on Control and marquee that shape. Now, change, and I want you to keep your eye on this icon right here, right there, as I go and change this to combine. See how it changed and now it's back to normal. Okay, if that's a good word. Now, let's keep on going. So I'll save this file. I can't have any path selected. I have to have all paths not selected. So if one of the paths is selected, like this one or this one, hold the Control key and click it. It'll turn it off. Good. See this layer? I can't have any layers selected. So hold the Control key and click out here in the gray area. Now double check that no layer is selected, no path is selected. And all we have to do is hit Edit, Paste. Now we're going to get a window and it's going to say, do you want to paste it as a smart object, a pixel, a path, or a shape layer? And I'm going to say a path. So click Paths and click OK. Now it's not going to appear in the exact place that we need it. So I'm going to turn on the clicky copy. Okay, I didn't click to it, I just turned it on. I'm going to hit the P key, which is what I want you to do. Hold Control and make a big box around it so all of that is selected. Good. Now hit Control T and let's now move it away from where it needs to be. Look what I did. So when I move it back, I can position it exactly where it needs to go to a reasonable point. And I did. And there's your lines. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that freaking amazing? Now let's hit the return key. Now save your file. And look down here. We have a work path that I want you to name. So I'm going to call it lines. Now, I can put in two layers. I'll put in this layer here and this layer here. I'll call this light lines. And I'll call this dark lines. Now, I'm going to turn off the clicky copy. I'm going to hold the Control key over here and make a selection of those. Now let's zoom in just a little bit, but I want to see this. I'm going to want to turn on and off the clicky copy in a second, but I don't want to see all these. So Deanna, do you remember you can go Control H to hide it or Control H to show it, right? Control H to hide it is what we want. Okay, so get your brush tool, make it big like this. Click the clicky copy, and in this case, I'm going to zoom in and get the light color. So I'm going to hold Alt and grab the light color. Okay, now I'll turn off the clicky copy. Now watch how I can actually take and put in, whoops, I have to click to the light. I almost painted on the dark lines. I'm going to click up to the light lines, and look what I can do. I can paint all of these lines in like this. Okay, now I can use this over and over again for these different shapes. Do you see that? See how cool that is? Okay, that is so pretty. And you know you can add a layer mask to this and take off some, especially around the edges if you don't want it. But now let's go here. Let's grab this color right here. It's that darker color. Now, I'm going to zoom out. Now, I don't want to paint that on the same layer as I did the light lines, so I'll turn off the clicky copy, click to the dark lines, and then I'll paint the dark lines. Now, do you see how cool that is and how you can actually use that? I'm going to flip on the clicky copy on and off. Do you see how beautiful that is? I think that's gorgeous. Okay, and if you want the lines to be somewhat thicker, there is a way to do that, but why don't you just make it, when you're in Illustrator, let me go back to Illustrator. Do you remember how I made these 0.75? Well, what if when you were in this layer, here, let me click back to this layer. What if when you were in this one, and I'll unlock it, instead of 0.75, let me click to the regular selection tool. Let me go inside and click it again. Okay. Let me see. Oh, I have to expand that. So what I'm trying to tell you is we're going to make it 1 point, not 0.75. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, if I was in Illustrator at that point, I would have gone Object Expand, right? Object Expand. And now, do you see how I could change? See how this says 0.75 right there? All I would have to do is make it 1 point and then repeat the process. Okay, just copy it, paste it. You'd have to take that right now. They're not, I don't want to go too far here, but remember their strokes, right? Remember their strokes. So what I should do is duplicate this again, so I again have it as an original, right? I have my original layer. Now before I make it into outline paths, I made a copy. And again, I could go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. And that's the one that I would bring into Photoshop if I wanted the lines to be a little thicker. So let me go back into Photoshop and again tell you what we've done. So we have done a pretty good job of bringing those lines in, and now you can have them as your highest layer, right? And as you're painting, look, just turn that off. When you need it, turn it on. And then you can just keep it going. See how beautiful that is? And if you don't want anything in this area right where I'm pointing, then all you have to do, and I have to remind you, I had Control H on. You remember Control H, Control H? I have to hit Control D to deselect before I add layer masks, right? Okay, so if I add a layer mask to this light lines and click to the dark lines and add a layer mask, you can see how if I click over here, I can actually paint black on the layer mask and reduce those lines. So you can see how easily you can add or take away from those lines by adding layer masks, which I know you know all about now. So that's it. I hope that has helped. I'm saving the file. And you might have to watch this like all the way through and then maybe even twice, just so you can get the feel of everything. Let me know.